Forget the fairy tales. Forget the shiny armor and noble quests. The real life of a medieval knight was anything but glorious. It was bloody, it was cruel, and for most knights, it was short. Today we're going to step into the armor to see what it truly meant to live and die as a knight. It starts at age 7. You're not a warrior yet. You're a page, the son of a noble family sent away from home to serve in a lord's castle. You learn to ride horses, polish armor, carry messages, and serve meals. You're also taught to read, pray, and follow the rigid code of chivalry: loyalty, piety, courage, and honor. Sounds noble, right? But behind the polished surface, this was military conditioning. You were being shaped, mentally and physically, for war. You learned to fight by wrestling, hunting, and jousting with wooden swords. Every day you were reminded, your body belongs to your lord, and your life belongs to your king. By age 14, if you survived that far, you became a squire. That meant battle training intensified. You learned to wield real weapons: the sword, the lance, the axe, and the mace. You followed your knight into combat, watching him kill and watching him die. Your job was to carry his weapons, tend his horse, and sometimes drag his bleeding body off the battlefield. In return, you got something priceless: experience. When you turned 21, if you had proven yourself worthy, you'd finally kneel before your lord. A priest blessed your sword. You swore your loyalty to God, your king, and your people. Then your lord tapped your shoulders with the blade and said the sacred words, "Arise, Sir Knight." From that moment on, you were bound by the sword. Being a knight wasn't just about courage. It was about endurance. Your armor weighed between 45 and 60 pounds, almost half your body weight. The steel plate suit you've seen in movies came later. For much of the medieval period, knights wore chainmail, tens of thousands of metal rings linked together. It took months to forge, and it didn't make you invincible. An arrow could pierce the gaps. A mace could crush your ribs beneath it. And after an hour under the summer sun, you'd feel like you were roasting alive. Knights often suffered from heat exhaustion, dehydration, and infection from cuts hidden beneath the armor. And imagine this: after riding for hours in the rain, your 60-pound armor rusted. If it wasn't cleaned immediately, it would corrode before your next battle. Maintaining your armor wasn't glamorous. It was exhausting and expensive. Let's go to war. It's dawn. You've been awake all night praying for forgiveness and for victory. You climb onto your war horse, a destrier, a beast bred for killing, worth more than most peasants will earn in a lifetime. You can barely move your head beneath the steel helm. Your vision is narrow, your breath heavy. Then the trumpets sound. You charge, lances shatter, swords crash, and suddenly the air is filled with screams, blood, and chaos. Knights didn't fight in cinematic duels. They hacked and slammed their way through anyone unlucky enough to be nearby, friend or foe. On the battlefield, honor meant survival. If you fell from your horse, you were as good as dead. Enemy infantry swarmed you, smashing at your joints, stabbing through the visor, trying to pry off pieces of your armor to finish you off. The ground beneath you turned into mud, soaked with blood, guts, and broken weapons. The smell was unbearable, the noise was deafening, and the fear was constant, even for the bravest knight. But here's the strange part. For a knight, being captured wasn't always a death sentence. It was an opportunity. Knights were valuable. Their families were rich. So if you were captured by another noble, they didn't always kill you. They ransomed you. They'd send a message to your family demanding gold, silver, or land for your release. And if your family refused, you'd rot in a cell, chained and forgotten. Many knights died not from wounds, but from starvation or disease in filthy dungeons. Knights loved to talk about chivalry, the sacred code that guided their actions. They swore to protect the weak, to serve God, to be honorable and merciful. But in reality, many knights were mercenaries, soldiers for hire who looted villages, burned towns, and slaughtered peasants for profit. The church tried to rein them in with declarations like the peace of God and the truce of God, forbidding fighting on holy days. But when the gold flowed and the enemy was declared an infidel or heretic, the same knights who swore to defend the innocent became instruments of destruction. The Crusades proved that. Knights stormed Jerusalem in 1099, slaughtering tens of thousands in the name of faith. Men who prayed at dawn became killers by noon. The line between holiness and horror was razor thin. Let's talk money. Armor cost a fortune. So did horses, squires, and servants. Most knights were deeply in debt to their lords. They needed war to survive. Every campaign offered loot, gold, prisoners, or land. Without it, even the noblest knight could go broke. Some turned to tournaments, public combat games that attracted massive crowds. They were dangerous and bloody. The weapons were blunted, but knights still died regularly. To win a tournament meant prestige, women's favor, and sometimes a small fortune. To lose meant broken bones or death. For a knight, violence wasn't just duty, it was a career. Let's talk about what that career did to the body. Years of sword training warped the spine. Old wounds healed badly. Hands were permanently calloused, fingers disfigured. Arrows embedded in limbs were often left there. Because pulling them out risked fatal bleeding, a knight's body was a map of pain. And when the fighting was over, there was little comfort waiting. Medical knowledge was primitive. Infections killed more than swords ever did. And even if you survived, your life expectancy was rarely beyond 40. For all their training and for all their glory, most knights died young. Imagine the mental toll. You've killed men up close. You've heard them choke on their own blood. You've lost brothers, friends, and comrades. You ride home through burned villages, past starving peasants, and try to believe that you're a hero. But you don't sleep well. You dream of the screams. You wake up reaching for your sword. What we'd call PTSD today was common among knights. But in their world, it was called God's test. No one pitied a broken knight. They prayed harder, drank more, and hoped for redemption in the next war. By the late 1400s, the world began to change. Gunpowder ended the age of chivalry. A single cannonball could crush a knight in armor. A musket fired by a farmer could kill a nobleman in seconds. The battlefield that once belonged to mounted warriors now belonged to armies, guns, and kings. The knight, once the most feared warrior in Europe, was suddenly obsolete. Many turned into landlords, governors, or ceremonial guards. The sword became decoration. The code of chivalry, poetry. The real knights faded into history. And yet, we still romanticize them. We write songs about their bravery. We build movies around their honor. We call people knightly when they're kind or brave. But the truth? The medieval knight was not a symbol of purity. He was a product of war, religion, and survival. He lived in a world where mercy was weakness, where courage was measured in blood, where loyalty to one's lord mattered more than life itself. He was both hero and monster. And maybe that's why we can't stop talking about them. Because knights remind us of the best and worst of ourselves. The glory, the brutality, the humanity. If you had lived in the Middle Ages, you might have dreamed of becoming a knight. But in reality, you would have lived a life of endless war, exhaustion, and fear. You would have killed and prayed for forgiveness. You would have seen death more often than sunlight. You would have known pain more intimately than peace. The life of a knight wasn't heroic, it was survival. In a world built on violence, and yet they carried on. Because in a dark and brutal time, the armor gave them something to believe in, a purpose, a code, a reason to keep fighting. The armor may be gone, the castles may be ruins, but the legend of the knight still stands, a mirror to humanity's eternal struggle between savagery and honor. History isn't just in books, it's written in blood. Subscribe for more untold stories of the world's past.